First on CBS Mornings, Eve Rodsky joins us now. Eve, thank you very much for being here. The documentary is very good and very dangerous. If you haven't had conversations about dividing the chores, you will watching this. But before people can solve a problem, they've got to recognize that there is a problem. And I think one of the great eye-opening moments and anecdotes in the documentary is the story you tell about going to lunch or trying to go to lunch with 4 or 5 women.
Yeah.
And all of you get bombarded by spouses, significant others elsewhere saying, "Where's this? I need that." What did that moment reveal to you?
No, there's a question, Tony, where one of the husbands asked, do the kids need to have lunch?
Kids need to have lunch.
Yes.
Yeah, they need to eat
those
every
kind
day.
of questions,
Kids
yes.
these days.
Yes.
What did that reveal to you?
Thank you for having me. Well, that was my first act of resistance, Tony, because for me, this was 11 years ago, I started to study these issues when nobody was talking about it. When people said, what do women have to complain about? You're graduating from college more than men. You're taking up leadership positions in workplaces. But what I saw is that equality has to start in the home. And it started with those texts. I counted up every single text and phone call we had received. We had 30 phone calls and 46 texts for 10 women over 30 minutes.
And then the amazing thing is when men are asked how much they do to contribute to taking on the household chores and the childcare, they overestimate and women actually underestimate. But when you, after that meeting or after that eye-opening moment, made a huge list of the blankety-blank stuff I do, it really brought it home. So in the time we have, rather than detail the problem, because a lot of people watching are like, yep, that's my household, how do you solve it? How do you get the household in order and more equal?
Well, I think the first thing is bringing attention to it. So we know from research that people do not really think about their home as an organization. As one wonderful man said to me, he said, my home is a type of place where you wait to decide who's taking the dog out, right when it's about to take a pee on the rug. And so what this documentary is trying to do, this film is trying to show that when you bring structured decision-making, which often people don't associate with the home, which only means people are afraid of that term. It just means you know who's doing what in advance. That leads to the end of bias, because we know the end of bias is when you leave assumptions at the door.
I thought it was so interesting. Jennifer Siebel Newsom, who's a great filmmaker, also was involved very heavily. She wrote, produced, directed. I'm very familiar with her work, and I think that this should be required viewing for all couples, married, whether you have kids or don't have kids. It is so, so, so good. And one of the things you all included was couples from the LGBTQ community, which is often not something you see. Why did you decide to do that, and what did you learn?
Well, I think a lot of our problems, Gayle, when it comes to chores, housework, finally getting to equality in the workplace, actually start from our home. And there's a lot to learn about other family structures. And what we saw, especially with LGBTQIA families, was that so many of those couples had to have difficult conversations early in their marriage or before their marriage, whether it's about coming out, adopting a child. And so when you can start having really difficult conversations early, you continue to have difficult conversations. And really, this movie is a love letter to communication.
Yeah.
Just to say systems are important, but communication is important.
Thank you. Big problem, big movie. Fair play out now.